So we've now moved just across a couple of streets down to Albany Street, another street in the area that has quite a lot of connections.
Yes, in fact, Albany Street is also on the compensation list. 2 or 3 houses on Albany Street, as I said, is on the list. And you could see actually, if you look across the road, that some of these have balconies and some haven't. So balconies, iron balconies, you know, were obviously a status symbol.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, if you own a few slaves, you have that status because you seem to have that bit more money.
Yeah.
And therefore, Albany Street is also important because, to my surprise, I was reading a historical document only this morning, and I was looking up Rodney Street, which we're going to look at. And Rodney Street is tremendous historical significance for 2 reasons. One, Rodney Street is named after Admiral George Rodney, who was a very distinguished British admiral in the Royal Navy. But also Rodney Street is also in Liverpool. And there's a link between Albany Street and Rodney Street because apparently naval officers lived on Albany Street.
Right.
And you know, I was reading this morning, they were discussing Rodney in terms of one of the famous battles he fought. So Albany Street, Fort Street, Rodney Street, Gladstone, major slave master as he was, and minor slave masters, as we had at 24 Ford Street.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Great.
Right. So again,
it all links in together.
It all links in. Well, we have here Rodney Street, which is a very important little street in an old part of Edinburgh. And behind us we've got Rodney Place. Rodney's name is very significant in terms of naval history. And we're not far from Fort Street, we're just down the road, we've walked.
Yeah.
So we're in the same historical context of Edinburgh. Now Rodney, who is Rodney? Rodney was a very famous admiral in the Royal Navy. He sort of preceded Nelson, but you have Rodney and then Nelson. They were both fighting in the same sort of 2082, sort of 25 years within of what I will be talking about. Now, in 1782, the French decided they were going to take Jamaica from the British. And the reason for that is Jamaica was providing, at the time, over 50% of the income from the Caribbean area. The British had 800,000 slaves in about 1782. And so Jamaica was providing over 50% with 300,000 slaves out of 800,000. So Jamaica was very important. Probably one of the most important pieces of land in the empire at the time. So the French decided they were going to take it. And if they took Jamaica, then the world may not be the same as it is today, because the French would have dominated in the Caribbean rather than the British. So the British had no option other than to defend Jamaica. To defend Jamaica, they sent down 2 admirals, Admiral Rodney and Admiral Hood. And of course we know Hood from the Hood battleship. So that's the name the battleship is derived from. So these were 2 top flight admirals sent down to defend Jamaica. Well, they defended Jamaica in 1782 on the 12th of April. It's a very significant date in the naval history and the history of this country, in that almost Rodney had to win. And on the 12th of April, I think, if you look up Wikipedia or whatever, you'll see the French lost, in terms of dead or wounded, over 3,000 men in that battle. I think the British, Rodney lost significantly less than that. However, Jamaica was saved. for the British because of its slave population and its the value of the products that it was producing from slaves. The interesting thing is that no matter where you go in Britain, there's a Rodney Street somewhere. Right. And so there's one in Edinburgh and there's also one in Liverpool. Right. And that has a Scottish connection as well, because John Gladstone was born in Leith, who was a voracious slave master. He got over 83 million pounds for his slaves on the compensation list. His son, though, William Gladstone, which is very famous, which is a Scottish Prime Minister, William Gladstone was born in Rodney Street in Liverpool. Right. So therefore we have Scottish connection not only with Rodney Street in Edinburgh, but with also in Liverpool.